Dialogue. It's midday in Dakar and 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, the top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye honors national team players with millions of cash and land as AFCON 2025 champions.
I
would like to take this opportunity to inform the Senegalese people that I have given each member of the Lion delegation 75 million CFA francs.
50 million.
Guinean civil society profiles demand following President Doumbouya's inauguration. Nigerian police confirms major abduction of Christian worshippers in Kaduna State, and Gambian government appoints British counsel to prosecute Jammeh-era atrocities.
Because of perhaps the pervasive nature of the Jammeh-era atrocities that were committed, appointing a Gambian prosecutor could have some implications of bias and conflicts of interest.
Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Thank you for joining us. We begin in Senegal as President Bassirou Diomaye Faye honors the national team players who are champions of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. The ceremony took place at the Presidential Palace on Tuesday night following a victory parade in Dakar. During the event, President Diomaye Faye pledged 75 million CFA francs and a plot of land for each member of the national football team. Sankle Janko reports.
The moment was marked by applause and pride as Senegal celebrated another major success on the continental stage. President Diomaye Faye congratulated the players for their hard work, discipline and determination. He pledged about 70 million CFA francs and a plot of land to each player for their efforts.
I would like to take this opportunity to inform the Senegalese people that on their behalf and in my own name, I have given each member of the Lion delegation present here 75 million CFA francs, 1,500 square meters on the Petite Côte to the members of the Federation, 1,000 square meters and 50 million CFA francs.
The presidential treat late Tuesday followed a long day of celebration in Dakar. Earlier, the champions paraded through the city in an open-top bus, displaying the trophy to cheering crowds. Thousands of supporters lined the streets, waving flags, singing and chanting in joy.
As a Senegalese, I'm very proud. I'm very proud. I can't tell you, I don't have the word to tell you how I'm happy today.
We will never forget this day because this means a lot. You see, all the population, they are here. Our mothers, our grandfathers, our little boys, they're all here.
While the celebrations were joyful, they were also emotional. Supporters expressed their sadness as the tournament marked the last Africa Cup of Nations appearance for star player Sadio Mane.
We are sad. We don't want him to go. We still need him because Sadio Mane means something in this group. He will motivate the young generation. The world still needs Sadio Mane.
As night fell in Dakar, the celebrations continued, blending happiness with reflection. Senegal celebrates a major victory, honors its champions, and bids farewell to a football icon who has left a lasting legacy.
Sankle Janko filed that report. Well, we will have more of that conversation in our sports segment. In the meantime, in Guinea, civil society organizations and political actors are voicing several demands. They are particularly calling for the release of political prisoners, the return of critical individuals in exile, and respect for civil liberties in the country. These demands follow the recent inauguration of the transitional president, General Mamadi Doumbouya. Abdulazan gives us details in this report.
The latest statement from socio-political organizations comes as President Mamadi Doumbouya continues to call for national unity. Political leaders emphasize the necessity of establishing an inclusive dialogue framework to outline the procedures for organizing the upcoming legislative elections. Civil society, for its part, prioritizes the protection of rights and freedoms. It advocates for the release of political prisoners and the return of socio-political actors currently in exile. Gabriel Haba, President of the National Council of Guinean Civil Society Organizations voices these concerns.
This is not a time for triumphalism. It is a time for rallying our energies and involving all the nation's forces in national development. All Guineans must now feel invested in our country's development process. We urge the head of state to release all prisoners, all those whose rights have been violated. This will send a powerful message to the nation, a message of unity, a message of reconciliation.
In recent years, both national and international observers have consistently condemned the restrictions on civil liberties since the military took power. The president of the National Council of Civil Society urges the head of state to ensure the respect of these liberties throughout his term.
We supported the head of state in effectively upholding the laws of the Republic, promoting public freedom, and protecting the fundamental rights. It is in this way that he will honorably leave his mark on the people of Guinea who have placed their trust in him.
However, some sources indicate that Aliou Ba, leader of the Model Party who was recently sentenced to 2 years in prison for insulting the president, may soon receive a presidential pardon.
A report from Chernafa Ibrahim Abadi in Conakry and presented by Abdullahi Hassan. The Nigerian police force has confirmed an abduction at Kumin Wali community in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State. This follows days of uncertainty and conflicting reports emanating from the area. A statement issued by the police public relations officer CSP Benjamin Hundeyin acknowledged that the incident, which sparked fear and anxiety among residents, was initially disputed during a meeting of the Kaduna State Security Council convened by Governor Ubasani. Francis Benefit tells us more.
The Nigerian police says subsequent verification from its operational units and intelligence sources confirmed that the incident did occur. This confirmation comes after some individuals from the affected local government area described the report as false, creating uncertainty and the need for further verification by security agencies. The chairman of the Christian Association of Nigeria in the northern region, John Hayab, stated that the scores of worshippers were abducted in the community. Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Sule Shuaibu, also stated that he had engaged Khan at the state level and community leaders regarding the situation. However, Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetekun, has ordered the deployment of critical operational and intelligence assets to Kajuru and surrounding areas. He, however, appealed to the public to rely on only official sources for verified information and to avoid speculation that could jeopardize ongoing operations. The incident is the latest in a series of mass abductions in parts of Nigeria.
Francis Bonface filed the report. Elsewhere in Nigeria, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) is increasing preparations for the 2026 area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The election is scheduled for February 21, 2026. According to INEC, the upcoming election is a crucial assessment of its readiness for Nigeria's general elections in 2027. WDL's Abuja correspondent Yechin Osasechi reports.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is distributing a total of 128,396 permanent voter cards, PVC, across various wards in the Federal Capital Territory. This exercise comes ahead of the area council elections scheduled for Saturday, February 21, 2026. The resident electoral commissioner for the FCT, Malam Aminu Kasimu Idris, disclosed this on Tuesday, January 20, 2026, during a media briefing in Abuja. Idris assures residents that INEC has made significant progress in line with its election timetable and schedule of activities.
The Commission has scheduled Thursday, 22nd January to Monday, 26th January 2026 for the collection of the PVCs. This will be done across the 6 area councils at the registration areas of the 6 area councils.
The resident electoral commissioner urges eligible voters who have yet to collect their permanent voter cards to take advantage of the ongoing ward-level distribution exercise.
Let me emphasize that the PVC remains the only valid document that qualifies a registered voter to be accredited and to vote on election day.
Meanwhile, in further preparations for the polls, The Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Justice Hussaini Yusuf, on Monday constituted the Area Council Election Tribunal ahead of the February 21 election. INEC says the measures are part of efforts to ensure a smooth, credible and transparent Area Council election in the FCT. For WADR, Hichinusa Situ in Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And concerning judicial matters, the Gambian government has selected potential appointees, including a British counsellor for its newly established Special Prosecutor's Office. This legal official is responsible for prosecuting crimes committed during the 22-year rule of former President Yahya Jammeh. In a recent interview with local media, the government spokesperson Ibrahima Sankari explained that the prosecutor's office will handle cases that may involve international considerations requiring a wide range of legal expertise. WDL Sangdana Mendy report from Banjul.
According to Sankare, the special prosecutor will lead investigations and coordinated prosecutions before the Special Criminal Court, which has been established to address alleged human rights violations from the Jammeh era. He knows that such cases are inherently complex and that the legal process is expected to take considerable time. This announcement has been welcomed by victims of the Jammeh regime, who emphasize that the priority now is to ensure that justice is served.
Truly, what matters to us really is somebody who can do the job and who can do it well, and who can do it in a way that it brings about the satisfaction that the victims are looking for.
The nationality of the personnel does not really matter, because the nature of the tribunals invites all qualified personnel to part of the process, so that we can have an impartial judicial process, that all parties that are subject matter to the crimes that are before the courts can have fair trial.
Meanwhile, legal experts suggest that the appointment of an international prosecutor could enhance credibility, independence, and public confidence in the proceedings. Lamin Kamara, a legal expert, supports this view.
Gambia is a very small country. Everybody is related to everybody else. And because of perhaps the pervasive nature of the Jammeh-era atrocities that were committed, appointing a Gambian prosecutor could have some implications of bias and conflicts of interest.
The Special Criminal Court is part of the government's efforts to implement recommendations of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, TRRC. Between 2018 and 2021, the TRRC documented hundreds of alleged abuses during Jammeh's rule, including unlawful killings, torture, enforced disappearances, sexual violence, and arbitrary detention. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Let's focus now on Liberia, where there is growing controversy over the military's attempt to reclaim properties occupied by civilians, including some former soldiers. On Tuesday, the armed forces dispatched 45 personnel to the 72nd Barracks near Monrovia to evict the occupants. The military claims that its action is intended to address ongoing problems such as power theft, drug abuse, and other criminal activities that have affected the area for years. However, the occupants are accusing the military of illegally invading private property. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The armed forces of Liberia plans to utilize the over 13 acres of reclaimed land for housing in preparation for a large-scale recruitment exercise. This project is backed by a budget allocation of $1.8 million. General Follett, Chief of Staff of the AFL, announced that after 2 weeks, the disputed area will be locked down and electricity will be cut off, rendering the area inaccessible. He emphasized the long-standing nature of this agreement, noting the negotiations with residents have been ongoing since 2013.
They will deploy there. They're not going to leave. The platform size of about 45 men will be deployed there, and they will be there until we start raising the wall. They got to leave. In 2 weeks' time, they will have to leave, else they will feel very uncomfortable, because we'll definitely move the electric wires to move them from that place. This is long overdue. This is over 15 years. So 2 weeks from now, we'll start to de-roof.
However, the military's action faces accusations of wrongful evasion. Among those affected by the decision is Alice Johnson, a retired military personnel who claims that the military is wrongfully seizing her property. She is appealing to the government for swift intervention in the matter.
I said this property is mine.
I've been here for 40 years. I have a deed to this property. The people have locked me up and there is nowhere to go. I share boundaries with the barrack. There is nowhere to go. I'm calling on the government to intervene. The situation at the 72nd Military Barracks is raising public concern as the affected residents are calling for amicable solutions to the dispute. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye honors national team players with millions of cash and land as African 2025 champions. Guinean civil society prefers demand following President Doumbouya's inauguration. Nigerian police confirms major abduction of Christian worshippers in Kaduna. And Gambian government appoint British counsel to prosecute Jama-era atrocities. Still ahead in the news, we do have the press review, the guest interview, and sports update. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and also follow live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Now, the economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa appears promising, with a projected rate exceeding 4% for 2026. This figure is reflected in the UN's report Outlook 2026, titled World Economic Situation. Usman Amara explains the details.
According to a report published by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Africa's economic growth, which was 3.9% in 2025, is expected to increase to over 4.6% in both 2026 and 2027. The IMF notes this growth in a context of global uncertainty. Among the region's major economies, Nigeria is projected to grow by 4.4% in 2026 and by 4.1% in 2027. In contrast, South Africa anticipates an expansion of 1.4% in 2026 and 1.5% in 2027. The report highlights that the stabilization of the macroeconomic situation and reform measures implemented in several countries are the primary drivers of this positive momentum. Another encouraging piece of news for African economies is that inflation is expected to slow in the coming years. However, the region still faces several challenges, with the IMF specifically mentioning a reduction in foreign aid. To maximize the continent's economic potential, the UN recommends that African countries pursue structural reforms, particularly those targeting labor markets, education, and regulatory frameworks. The IMF also emphasizes the importance of maintaining fiscal discipline while investing in infrastructure and human capital.
Usman Amara filed that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
We head back to Banjul as we rejoin Sang Dinamendi for the newspaper review.
We begin with the Alkamba Times, which reports that the Gambia has signed a major agreement with Margins ID Systems for the production of new national identity cards. Gambia immigrant YICC announces bid for Pulayab School Board, and IMCTC partners with Gambia Armed Forces for specialized counter-terrorism training in Banjul. The Gambia Armed Forces, GAF, in collaboration with the Islamic Military Counter-Terrorism Coalition, has launched a 3-week intensive training program focused on counterterrorism, specifically the disposal of mines and improvised explosive devices. We now turn to the Point newspaper, where the lead story says Justice Jaite has dismissed the state's appeal in a 13-year-old land dispute case. Also in the Point, GDC leader calls on voters to judge political parties by action. The Gambia Democratic Congress leader urges voters to assess parties based on performance rather than promises. Next, we check Foroya newspaper, whose banner headline focuses on justice and human rights. The paper reports that 3 men accused of murder in Farafenye have been acquitted after spending 5 years in custody. Pathologist tells court late Leonard Dominic suffered stabbed wounds to the chest. And that brings us to the end of this edition of the Press Review. Back to you in the studios.
Many thanks, Sang Danal Menithe in Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Councillor Saliu Tal, former president of the Gambia Bar Association. He provides legal analysis of the ongoing move by the government to appoint a special counsel for the Special Prosecutor's Office. The selected prosecutor will be tasked with investigating and prosecuting cases relating to crimes committed during former President Jammeh's 22-year rule. In this context, Councillor Tal weighs on the matter.
As president of the bar and past president of the bar, I was a member of the ECOWAS Gambia Technical Committee that advised the government on the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor and what they call a special accountability mechanism, which constitutes a hybrid court and domestic court. Some of the crimes that alleged to have been committed by the former president and his enablers have both domestic and international elements. So for that reason, the special prosecutor has to be somebody who has experience and capacity to deal with not only domestic crimes but international crimes. So if you look at the Act, it does not prohibit the appointment of non-Gambians, but gives preference to Gambians who have those skills and experience. So there's national ownership, so the preference is for Gambian candidates, but any other person who has demonstrated specialized experience, knowledge, and capacity can actually hold the post, including a British or American national for that matter. But it is not unusual to have a special prosecutor who's a non-national to actually prosecute crimes, international and domestic crimes, in the transnational justice environment.
How might international law and cross-border jurisdiction affect the prosecution of crimes committed, especially during the Yahya Jammeh's regime, if suspects or evidence are located outside of the Gambia?
No, when you talk about international crimes, you talk about certain crimes that are designated as so serious that it offends humanity. Things like torture, enforced disappearances, sexual gender-based violence, crimes against humanity. It doesn't matter where you commit it, it's called international crime. It cuts across all jurisdictions. So some of those crimes were alleged to have been committed in Gambia. For that reason, and Gambian law it's not adequate to deal with those crimes because we don't have them in our law books. That's why the court was designed and the process was designed to enable the Gambian government with the support of ECOWAS. You have to remember that ECOWAS agreed to establish a special court of the Gambia, just like the one that was established in Sierra Leone, special court in Sierra Leone. There's one that's created by addition of ECOWAS heads of state in the Gambia. And there's also a domestic element of the court. So the aspect of international crimes will be prosecuted in that internationalized tribunal based in the Gambia using international crimes, criminal law, not Gambian domestic law, international criminal law and Gambian domestic law.
What factors will determine whether the Gambia's Special Prosecutor's Office succeeds in delivering credible and lasting justice for the Gambian people?
First of all, the selection process. Let's start with the enactment of the Act. It was a multi-stakeholder approach. It involved the Gambian government, of course, involved the Bar Association, involved civil society, involved victim-led organization, in National Assembly. So involved multi-stakeholders all invested in ensuring that we have a justice process that's open, participatory, and transparent from the consultative stage to the enactment of the Act. And within the Act, the appointment process is of very, very high standard. You have an independent selection panel of very eminent Gambians and international renowned scholars and practitioners of global repute with a very well-defined criteria as to who should appoint. I mean, what is the subset of the criteria of appointment, the qualification, the experience, and the guiding principles to ensure that the process is very transparent, is open, and whoever is appointed would meet the requirements to be able to discharge that office and duty independently with a fair or favor based on acceptable international law.
Councillor Saliu Tal, former president of the Gambian Bar Association. And for sports, Uncle Janko rejoins me in the studio with an analysis of the African Championship celebrations in Senegal. Hello, Sankle.
Hello, Imo.
Well, we're seeing the second title in 5 years and the third final in 5 years. I mean, what is that secret that Senegal is not letting the world to know?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Imo, because so many factors are responsible. Let's first of all begin. I mean, Senegal's rise to the summit of African football, Imo, is sealed by last week's AFCON 2025 triumph in Morocco. It's a result of long-term planning that begins at grassroots level. Let's break this down. Well, at the heart of that success is a strong youth development system built around elite academies like Generation Foot, Jambars, and more recently, the PSG Academy in Sali, supported by community clubs and amateur leagues. For example, these academies, spot total talent early, provide structure coaching, and create pathways to professional football, often through partnership with European clubs. Generation Foot's long-term link with FC Metz in France has produced stars like Sadio Mane, Pape Matar Sarr, Ismaila Sarr, and Lamine Camara. So that academies have been very, very, very key factor to the meteoric rise in Senegalese football.
Well, what else would you say is responsible, and what are the lessons you think other countries, particularly in our sub-region, can learn from?
Well, other, factors also include backed by heavy investment through the Senegalese Football Federation, particularly under the tutelage of former President Augustin Senghor. The federation judiciously used the FIFA Go Fund project to invest in coaching, education, youth football system, and infrastructure as well. And talking about infrastructure, the Senegalese government also has invested heavily in infrastructure while also providing all the necessary support the federation in grassroots football development and needs. So Senegal's success is built on a steady talent pipeline, proof of clear vision rather than a short-term miracle. That's why you could see that from 2021 onward, 2022, Senegal has dominated all across all the competitions. AFCON, CHAN, under 20, under 17, they've won it all. Beach soccer. It was a long-term investment, and also in the contribution of former ex-players, they've also invested in football. We've seen, for example, some of them are agents.
Yes.
Some of them are part of the technical team. The coach is a former national team player, Pap Chow. Before him, Aliou Cissé as well. So there was a clear pathway as to how they want things to go, and that's why a decade down the lane, Senegal is dominating African football. Well, and I think other countries, like you said, could also learn from this. Invest in grassroots football,
investment,
and have a system that you follow through. You don't need to rush it. Just one step at a time, and you bear the fruits like we are seeing Senegal is enjoying today.
Well, maybe in 30 seconds, Sankle, do you think this can be replicated? The Senegalese national team can replicate this success at the forthcoming World Cup?
They can. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Cup, but they are a very, very good
what
team.
if they win?
Well, that would be an amazing. That would be the icing on the cake,
Don't limit them.
Of course, I'm not limiting them. No, they are a good team. As most of the pundits I've been watching, even in Europe, are saying that they are a force to be reckoned with. So people are expecting a lot from them, and they have the team to do well in this Summer World Cup in the US and Mexico and Canada.
Sankle, thank you so much for your time. And that's Sport News. Yes, and that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you so much for listening. And many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, WADR English. Coming up next is 50-50. I am Imo Eden. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone, in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM, Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.